resonance with the past. What is that? It is a brief and unexpected glimpses of situations experienced in former life. But our physical brain is apt to deal with phenomena of the present existence. However, our internal spirit, who dwell in us, keep all the experienced scenes in former incarnation. Everything is kept, such as sensation, emotions, thoughts, with all their colors. Now, on a special occasion or in some circumstances, former life experiences, scenes can filter into the present brain, then to the level of consciousness. That's the problem. Our brain is prepared for the present existence, but once in a while, depending on the circumstances, there will be this filtering of scenes. And from other lifetimes, it will come to our brain and then to our conscience, to our consciousness. So now, if the remembrance of those scenes is harmonic, is happy, everything is fine. The sensation and feeling will be great. It can be better. It's the same as when you meet by chance, you meet somebody you have never seen before, and suddenly you get so happy. Just for laying your eyes on that person, you have the sensation that you have met that person before with love, because you have great feeling. It is a feeling of a great experience. Now, if the remembrance is unpleasant, it is something else. Its filtering into the present can cause sudden anguish, fear, bad feeling, and so forth. Depression. So, sometimes, the person is feeling those kind of things from this resonance, those glimpses of situations, and nothing is done. It can be a deconstruction of the personality. And in serious cases, if it goes on, in a serious cases, a clear psychopathology. It may end up, the patient, the person who is suffering that, may end up in the problem can undermine in the nervous system. Great, if that happens, great feeling of terror rise to the self-induced mental parasitic currents. It gives rise to that. So if the problem continues and nothing is done, it will get to that point. And the problem will be considered to be a psychopathological syndrome. This problem, this kind of resonance with the past, is not recognized by the conventional medicine. Unfortunately, it has to be done another way. But it is in there, and it happens. Now, treatment for that. What is the treatment for the resonance with the past? The treatment is still unknown by the conventional medicine, to the conventional medicine. The treatment on a spiritual issue through APOMETRY consists of erasing the impression from the patient's brain and adjusting both personalities to their present, and healing one and the other is the best thing to do after adjusting. By doing that, the problem is solved. Now, we are going to have right now a case study, and this case is related to resonance with this patient, those glimpses and those things that I have just said. Let's see this case. This case was taken by Dr. Lacerda, and it is on his book, Spirit and Matter. So what was the problem? The patient was a female, 32 years. It was done on 1974, this case. So she was 32 at that time. She was married, and let's see what happened to her. First, after her delivery, she had a minor problem at home, and she had to face it, and became weak organically, followed by nervous crisis and anguish and agitation. That happened after she delivered her baby. And then because of the agitation, she was hospitalized in the Spirit Hospital for 3 months. And the diagnosis was schizophrenia. Now, despite her taking large quantities of therapeutic drugs, her condition was becoming chronic. As she was having the medication, and the agitation was calm, was controlled, she was released and went home. But very soon, pretty much soon, she had more problems. And see what she had when she was at home. After being hospitalized for 3 months, she had mental confusion, intense agitation, intense anguish, persecution delirium, exaggerated cries of fear, feeling of being abandoned, with the outburst of crying. That's all what she had. After leaving the hospital where she was for 3 months and came home, soon after she was with those matters and was hospitalized again for the second time. Now, let's see what happened on the second time. It was when she wanted to go to the spirit part of the hospital, the Garden House, that's the name, in Porto Alegre, Brazil, where Dr. Lacerda, for 20 years, worked intensely in order to establish APOMETRY. So the patient was taken there to have spiritual treatment, and she was very happy for that. She had lost her hope of being better. So let's see what happened. Right away, the medium saw or spoke about a woman, a spirit of a woman who was very close to the patient. So who was that woman? In this kind of situation, the first thing to do is to help the spirit. If the spirit is suffering, if the spirit is found with the patient, the first thing to do is to take care of the spirit. So they released the spirit from the coffin, the heavy clothes, all what the spirit was carrying. It was a woman, older, much older than the patient. And let's see what happened. once she was released and happy for being released, because she herself said that she had been with this anguish for many years, and it were many years. And she was happy, thanking God for the opportunity. Now, once she was happy for that, she started speaking about the drama that happened to the patient in Scotland. It was on the last century, in the middle of the last century. Now, it was the Spirit who spoke about everything that happened with detail. So, this Spirit was a sister of the patient, older sister. They belonged to a very wealthy family on a highland of Scotland, high-level class. And the sister was the first daughter, but the second daughter was born when the parents were very old. And the sister was as a mother for her, very old, much older than herself. And the parents died very soon. The sister, the little girl, was orphaned very early. And who took care of her? The sister. The sister, the old sister, and she had not get married. She did not want it to. She was a spinster, but loved the girl and raised the girl as her mother. And the girl in that big house was the hot flower, house flower. Everyone loved the girl, beautiful girl. All the employees and the sister. The sister was with a strong personality, character, but took a wonderful care of her. However, that little girl, with all that care, was not prepared to face the adversities destiny had reserved for her, because she did not have a chance to suffer. She had everything around her, every care, all the possibility one can have, one can dream of. Now, about the married, let's see what happened to that patient now at that time of the treatment, 32 years old. Let's see what happened. The sister made her marry a fellow noble countryman, used to a very different environment and lifestyle, but they did not know. It was a guy of a bohemian style, frivolous character, nights out with different women every day, and spending money, all the money the parents left for him, going to ruin, but every time he was with others, everybody believed he was on the best level of everything, and he made people believe in that. So the old sister believed it was a good and great married. So they got married, and the couple went to live in the big house with the sister, who took care of the woman, the lady, now married. But very soon, pretty much soon, the husband began asking for money to satisfy his low instincts. He did not have money any longer. The arrangement went so far that the sister intervened in the couple's life and kicked him off her house, expelled him out of her house. And the husband was actually afraid of her. He hated his sister-in-law, but at the same time he was afraid of her because she was very respected in that society. Everything she did was with truth, money, respect, and everything. She was a very considerable and a respected woman. So he was afraid of her, and a well-influenced woman with great influence. So, but what happened? He was not with his wife any longer, but something happened. When the sister was 32 years old, she died. And the young lady was in uncontrollable sorrow, not prepared for life, and at the mercy of her gambling playboy husband. So let's see what happened to her. He came back in the house. He took over, once in the house, he took over his wife's fortune, dissipated the money in no time, abandoned her in the house and left. A little lady later, the young Baroness was in total misery without her sister, and when it happened, she was 32 years old, exactly the same age the patient was when she asked for treatment with APOMETRY, 32. So at that time, she was 32 years old when it happened. And she felt very depressed, frustrated, abandoned, feared, now alone in that big house with no money, in total misery. She's afraid of everything. She died pretty much soon, 32 years she died in total misery after having gone through frustrations, privations, and much grief and suffering. That's what happened to her. That's the story. Now, the spirit of the lady was in resonance with the young lady exactly when the young lady started calling the spirit. When the old sister died, the young lady suffered what she suffered with her husband, her playboy husband. She started calling her sister during the night and every moment because it was the one who protected her. So on that sense, it started the induction. She came and started being close to her. Her crying close to her sister when the sister entered in a resonance with that past when she was 32. That crying, the spirit came crying. That problem was not on her intention to harm the sister. She actually came only because the sister was calling for her. Every time the sister went to sleep, her spirit was out of the physical body, she started calling her sister, the one who raised her, the one who was for her her mother. So it was that attraction was brought by herself. And the spirit said, I did not have the intention to harm her, but she did. Even though she had not that intention, she did. So that part had to be separated. Longings. The spirit longed for the young sister, and the young sister longed for the spirit of her sister, old sister. So it was the fact that they were together, it was in both parts. It was not something that comes from outside. it was from one side and from the other. When the spirit was having a chance through the medium to caress her young sister, the spirit was crying desperately because it was a long time that she did not have the contact with her sister. She longed for that. It was a great time of a long, restrained love. And that was the way the spirit also received treatment. Because by being sad, for longing for the touch of a loved one, it is a great thing to do when the spirit has an opportunity through a medium to touch a loved one, a relative, somebody. That helped the spirit. And the last thing that was done for her was to send her to an astral institution where she could continue with her treatment and progress spiritually. That was what was done to the spirit. That was the help the spirit received. Now let's see the help the patient received. What kind of help and what kind of a treatment. First was brain drainage, because the patient was hospitalized twice with those images, because it was a glimpse of images of what happened, and the images were inside her brain, and it was that the reason why there was this brain drainage of low frequency of magnetic currents and parasitic images. So what was provoking fear, anguish in the astral brain of the patient was cleared. The other thing that was done to help the patient was depolarization of memory stimuli. It was for her, the patient, to forget that bad memory. Consciously, of course. She needed to understand why she was suffering, and she understood. But it was erased so that she could not be thinking about always and repeating the same thing and bringing the images and making all those harmings. That was one thing also done to help the patient. Let's see something else. Left the patient after that, which was done only on 40 minutes. After 3 days, the patient was totally cured. She had no problem at all. She stayed in there just to make sure everything was great. And 5 years later, they had the opportunity to be in touch with the patient. So that lady, when asked for them, and she was 32, 5 years later she had graduated from law school and was practicing her profession as a lawyer with all the details. So the healing was 100% great. And she did not have actually schizophrenia, as she was diagnosed with. Maybe the symptoms she had was close or similar to schizophrenia, but that was not what she had. All the problems she had, all those disturbances she had, was related to the touch of what she had on that lifetime. Now, the first law on this case was the law of vibratory resonance with the past that happened when she was 32 and was in resonance with that lifetime when she was 32. and it was draining. The fear was transferred. Anguish, actually the anguish and fear of abandonment was from the other side. Anguish was from the spirit, because the spirit transferred for her that anguish. Fear from the other lifetime. Everything was passing by from one incarnation into the other. That was the resonance. Now, the other law was spiritual induction. The patient during sleep sought help, calling her sister. The spirit transferred for her the anguish and suffering. That was induction. Because when one spirit gets close to a person, that was that case, get too attached, and the person starts feeling exactly what the spirit was feeling, and the spirit stopped feeling pain or whatever it was feeling. So that's induction. The two laws were applied in that case of that patient. Now let's see the techniques that were used for that. The command of vibratory syntony with the spirit, and everything in order to find that out. Magnetic passes or laying on of hands to cleanse or reduce the vibratory and of her superior chakra, where she could see the images and everything that were ruining her brain, her physical brain. It was cleaned with magnetic treatment. Brain drainage, in order to lower the frequency, magnetic currents and parasitic images that she had. And depolarization. It was the techniques was used for that case. Now, it is on his book, Spirit and Matter, for anyone to see more if you are interested in learning a little bit more about that. So the second case, based on this, from outside, has nothing to do with another incarnation or family ties. But this case was done on 1975, 1 year later. Let's see the patient. The patient is a female, 36 years old nurse, a very nice lady, good aura, married. And what was her problem? She was suffering from a strange and persistent allergic syndrome. She said that during 6 months she could not have any result, but that more things came on top of it. She was complaining about sudden allergic crisis with a serious hypersensitivity of her skin and some light rashes, followed by intense itching with generalized purplish spots that afterwards vanished without any therapeutic treatment. That was the problem that the patient had. And after drinking all what she could drink to stop that, she could not. And she went to find about what she could have for help at the garden house with APOMETRY. Let's see the treatment she received. Spiritual treatment. When they unfold the mediums automatically saw what was very close to the patient. Very, very close. It was a discarnate spirit suffering immensely. He was, when he was incorporated in a medium, the medium could not even be touched. When one of the doctors, mediums, touched the medium was crying with pain because she was incorporated with the spirit. The spirit was, she was feeling what he was feeling. So nobody could touch her. That was the stage of the spirit when it was found. Who he was a worker who was badly burned when a boiler exploded, and after a few days of intense suffering, he died. His skin was bad. He was totally burned. It smelled bad after that, and he died. He knew he was discarnate, but he did not get rid of the burns. He was still feeling the same thing. Don't get the delusion that once you die, everything will be fine. I have been speaking about that since a long time. It will depend on the way you faced the matter. If you were not revolted with that and was conciled with that, is one thing. But if you do not accept that, it is something else. He was feeling everything. He said, it was said by himself, the spirit was treated completely. Before anything, before he spoke any about what happened, he was treated in respect to the spirit. Everything was great. Everything was fine. The burns and whatever happened, the spirit was totally healed. Once he was in that state, then he started speaking about what happened. He was free from the problem. So much calmer, he spoke about. He said he was anguished when he realized he was dead. He did not accept the death, especially on that situation. He was clear in saying that. And with the awful aspect. He did not like to have that aspect because you see yourself on the other side. And he was seeing himself with that awful aspect of being burned and smell, bad smell. No other spirit could be close to him. And he suffered for that. He was always walking alone because nobody would like to be close to him. And when he was extremely exhausted by walking from one side to the other, he went to a hospital for help. In a hospital in here on the planet, earthly hospital, because that was the place where he used to know, of course, on the same city. So once he was in there, he wanted to rest and wanted somebody to take care of him. But what happened was that all the other spirits who were in the hospital took over the empty beds, and he did not have the chance to rest because they did not let him. They did not want him around because of the smell, because of the ugly aspect, physical aspect. So what did he do? He saw that nurse, because where he went was to the hospital where the patient was working. So he came close to the nurse and felt attracted by her balanced aura and a feeling of well-being he had never experienced for a long time. He felt by being close to her. He was attracted by those feelings. And he did not leave her because he understood he was getting better just by being close to her. From that moment on, he felt relieved and at the same time caused rash on her skin. He could see it. He was better, but that nurse, wonderful nurse, was with all the rashes, feeling what he was feeling. He described that with all the words and colors. first, he said, what he saw on her seemed to be allergic, that at time went by become a morbid stage of skin disease. And he was sorry for her. He understood she was feeling the same thing he had felt. And those problems, that problem was unresponsive to any treatment. As the cause was not in the physical body, it resisted. Because what happened to her, to the nurse, the spirit was very close to her. And she was feeling everything that actually came to the physical body. But it was not a physical problem, it was a spiritual problem. That's why there was no way to end the matter. The problem got worse. And as magnetic ties became stronger. So which means the more he attached to her, the worse she became. That was because of that. He was very attached to her. But he had nothing to do with a member of her family at all. It was a spirit who was trying to to rest a little and was attracted by that lady. Of course, the nurse was a sensitive person, probably a medium without even knowing that, or maybe did not want to know. But that's what happened to her. The problem she had became more intense, and the spirit described that. Treatment. The treatment, a spirit was, this treatment now is for both ways, for the spirit and for the nurse. How come one received help and the other also? Because they found what was with the nurse, and they start treating the spirit, healing the spirit, and at the same time healing the patient. The spirit was sent, after agreeing with that, he was sent to an astral institution where he could receive help. And he agreed and asked forgiveness to her, and that problem was resolved. At the same time, the doctors who were there during the session brought her to the hospital where she could receive help. In that case, as they always do, they asked Dr. Lacerda to unfold her, as it is part of the technique, the entire technique. So she was also brought to the hospital to receive help. As soon as the skin rashes ended, she was totally healed, because the toxins of her spiritual, whatever was on her spiritual body, was taken care of. And then the toxin of her body was also taken care of. And when it ended, she was another person. The spiritual allergen that she had on her spiritual body was removed. Her physical body got rid of the irritating toxins that was appeared and disappeared without treatment or therapeutic treatment. But those were toxins that came from the spirit disappeared, and she was totally cured. In 1 month, she had no problem at all, and everything was done in only 1 session of 30 minutes. The second problem that we just saw, it was spiritual induction through resonance. Not with the past, but resonance with the spirit. It is a great thing to know, and I'll tell you one thing. You receive the mediums when they are working. especially the operator, they receive the energy from the cosmos, and it is mixed with what the operator have inside, the thoughts, the energy of the thoughts, vital energy, and it will be transformed into magnetic energy in order to help the others, to help oneself, and do whatever it has to be done. The operators must be knowledgeable on that sense, understanding, open-minded, to kept and do what he needs to do. Now, once you think you can use it to do evil to others, you'd better pay attention, because you can reverse all that energy into negativity to yourself. These are not my words. These are words of Dr. Lacerda. So you be careful when you think you can use it to manipulate and make people do what you want, because that time is over. That kind of technique, APOMETRY, doesn't go on that sense. You may believe you do, but it doesn't go. So you are advised. But if you want to use it, to learn about that, and use it to help others, you will be welcome, not for me, not exactly by me, but by those who work with that, helping you from the other world, and by the cosmos. Because the cosmos has memories, has eyes, has intelligence, has everything. They know exactly what's going on. So do it. Learn how to do, and you can help people on your church. You can go and do whatever you want to do. The technique is there. You saw the example that I gave right here to you, and it is not an imagination. It is in the book. You can see it, you can learn it if you want to, and do something if you want to, because it is in there. It was done by a medical doctor who had many years of experience working day and night to establish APOMETRY with all the laws, with all the great healings that he proved to anyone around the world, all right? So it was great to be with you and talk about APOMETRY.